Hi everybody, welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. I am joined by a wonderful guest. You have heard her voice already once on the show, and that is Laurel Woodward. She is the author of Backyard Garden Witchery and Kitchen Witchery. Laurel, welcome back to the show, and I hope you had such a fun holiday.
I had a lovely holiday and thanks for having me. It's so nice to be back.
I'm so glad you could be here. Before we started recording, we were talking about homesteading adventures with pumpkins, and I knew that you guys would absolutely love hearing all about this. Now, you were saying that they were Amish pumpkins, right?
Yes. Yeah, I grew three kinds this year: New England, jack-o'-lanterns, and an Amish pie pumpkin. That doesn't look very much like a jack-o'-lantern type pumpkin. It
Mm-hmm.
looks more like a gourd. Um, and it produced anywhere from um like basketball size to ginormous watermelon size pumpkins. And it's my favorite pumpkin. I've saved seeds from it, so I'm going to plant it again.
Oh, that's
Uh,
so fun.
yeah, yeah. It was my favorite thing. I remember you telling me that you loved the brandy wine tomatoes was your favorite.
Yeah, my brandy wines didn't do as well as I wanted them to this year because it was so hot and dry, which is
Mm,
very uncommon for Tennessee. Tennessee usually has really hot and humid summers, but this
hmm
was really hot and dry. So my soil wasn't prepared for it. My plants weren't prepared for it. Heck, I even wasn't prepared for how hot and dry it
mm.
was. And so all my stuff didn't produce until October.
Oh yeah, mine
And
had a really late season too.
yeah, it was such a weird growing season. It was that way for everybody. Everybody that I talked to that had gardens all had really late growing seasons.
Mhm,
And so I didn't get as many tomatoes. I was hoping to grow a lot for pasta sauces, and it just
mhm,
didn't happen. My cherry tomatoes did fantastic. I got lots off
mhm.
of them, but all my big sized tomatoes, my heirlooms, my brandywines, and I had some Romas as well, and none of them produced very well.
Mm.
So,
My Romas did really well. But you inspired me, and I ordered brandywine seeds for this coming spring,
oh,
and I'm
good.
really excited about them.
I'm excited for you. I think that you're going to really enjoy them. And the brandy wines were probably some of the ones that did get were probably some of the best tasting tomatoes I've ever
Mm.
tasted in my life. They were so sweet and so savory and just a wonderful tomato. So I absolutely highly recommend brandy wines if
Yeah.
anybody wants to grow those. That was so awesome. Um,
One of my favorite summer breakfasts is just a piece of toast with mayonnaise and tomato slices.
oh, I used to
So
make those as
simple,
sandwiches.
so
I love those.
refreshing, and so tasty.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so good. I love those. And I know that that's kind of weird for a lot of people, but I grew up with those, and
Mm.
if you wanted to get really fancy, you put some bacon on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or use a waffle instead of bread.
Yeah, that works too. That definitely works. So, what was you said that you made a bunch of pies with your pumpkins for Thanksgiving. Now, those pumpkins, are they sweet or are they just kind of more of like a milder pumpkin, the Amish
Well, they're
pumpkins?
they're like a mild sweetness.
Okay.
They'd be great in any savory dish too. I should have made a ravioli with them, but
Oh, that would have been delicious.
yeah, would have, or even just in a fettuccine with a sauce.
Mm.
But I, I've gotten so carried away with baking already that I've just been baking and baking. Right now, I have a meatloaf in the oven for lunch. It's just the season, though.
It is the season. It
You just
is.
start, and it's hard to stop.
It really is. And we grew one of our pumpkins. I grew the little pie pumpkins. I don't even remember the
Mhm.
specific brand, but it was a
And
pie pumpkin. And my first one gave me a only one pumpkin that was about the size of an apple.
mm,
And it was my first year ever growing pumpkins. But my other one, all season long, it was just giving me male flowers all season. I was
oh,
like, what are you doing? Are you going to give me anything? And I was cutting down my corn stalks that had already died off. And my daughter lifted up one of the leaves of the pumpkin because it was still doing well. And she was like, we have a pumpkin here. And she's like, it's like a normal sized pumpkin. And it's just snuck itself under the leaves and nobody saw it until she lifted
Yeah,
up those leaves, and it
I
turned out so great. We made a pumpkin pie with it for Thanksgiving, and
mm,
I can't go back to canned pumpkin now. I
yeah,
can't do it.
me neither. I love pumpkins are so rewarding to grow. And
Mhm.
every year that happens to me too. I will find mystery pumpkins just nestled in the grass that I didn't know I didn't know it was there.
I absolutely love it, and I think that next year I want to grow some of the bigger blue pumpkins,
Oh, right.
and because they look so fun anyway, and they're so
Mhm,
pretty. But
mhm,
I know that they make beautiful savory dishes, and I've seen some people bake with them too. But I know
mhm.
they make beautiful savory dishes, and I'm like, you know what? I just want to grow them. That's going to be my experiment next year, is growing a lot more pumpkins,
Oh,
and lots more butternut squash too.
every year I pick an experiment too. It's something new to try to see how
Hmm.
it does. And sometimes they are stars, and then sometimes they're just studs. But
Yeah, that was my zucchini this year. My zucchini was one of my experiments this year, and I got one itty bitty teeny tiny zucchini, and that was it.
oh,
And the rest of them got vine borers, and they all died. And
oh,
so I was like, I did everything I was supposed to do to keep from the vine borers,
mhm,
and even tried to prevent them from like, doing it, and it just didn't work. So,
hmm.
but they didn't go after my butternut squash, which was strange. They went after all my other squashes except the butternut. So I don't know
Well,
what the difference is.
some varieties will be um what's it called when they don't get they'll be resistant
Oh yeah, yeah.
to insects
Mm-hmm.
and things in your area. I get a lot of my seeds from local from territorial seed because it's here, and they try to you know furnish a lot of things that are resistant.
Mm-hmm.
um if you if you come up with a few like that, it's so much easier because then you don't have to battle the molds and the funguses and the
Mm-hmm.
insects.
I think I'm
But I
gonna try
remember the
that this
first
coming
year.
year too, this year as well, because December is the time when most gardeners actually start their garden planning, because
Mhm,
you got to put your seeds out and get them started in January, at least here, because we have a long growing season.
mhm.
So by the time February rolls around, I've already got stuff outside.
Oh, wow, you're
Yeah.
so lucky. I can't start until March.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but even that's fine. I mean, I still plan. Figure out what I'm gonna do and then order my seeds and
Hmm.
think about where I'm gonna put them. And
Oh, the seed
but
catalogs are my bane when they start coming. We just got one this
yeah.
last week, and my daughter's like, look at this," and I'm like, I don't know if I want to grow the specialty stuff, because some of my
Mm,
specialty stuff didn't do well last year. So I'm like, do I
mhm.
want to buy the seeds for it? And then she's like, look at these carrots. They're as tall as I am. And I'm like, I don't have the ground space to grow those, honey.
Yeah.
I'm like, not only that, I think those would be a little hard to harvest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
um, but as Yule comes up, and you already said that you're baking and doing a lot of cooking,
Mhm.
what are some of your go to Yule dishes that you like to bake this time of year?
Oh, well, there's so many. Every year, just for tradition, we do Christmas cookies and a Yule log, just because it's tradition.
Mm-hmm.
But I often try to find a new recipe to work in. I also always do an apple crisp,
Mm-hmm.
and usually some sort of pear, um, either a tart or a pie or a cake. Um, I love cooking with fruits.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and at Thanksgiving, my big experiment was quince this year, and I had so much fun.
Now, what
Um,
is quince? We spoke a little bit about that prior to our conversation being recorded, but what is quince? I don't know if I'm familiar with them.
well, it's a fruit that grows on a tree. It's in the rose family, like a
Oh,
pear
okay.
and an apple. It's a hard fruit that gets a fuzz on it, and you don't eat it raw because it's tastes astringent and it's hard and doesn't feel good in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But when you cook it, it turns this lovely, like ruby red grapefruit color and becomes soft and sweet with tang.
Huh.
And
Okay.
you can make I poached them and then I roasted them, and they were both turned out great. When I poached them, I made a syrup, and I could put like a cup of the fruit in syrup into cakes and muffins.
Oh,
And oh
wow.
my gosh, it was amazing. Or you could bake them and then serve them with the cheese and crackers or bread and or make a jam out of them. Um, it was really I have one little quince tree. Um, and this year it had like 2 dozen fruit.
Hmm.
So it was just fun to figure out how to use it.
That is always fun, especially when you get a really good harvest off of
Yeah.
a fruit bush or tree. I have a lot of wild blackberries. The downside is
Mhm.
the birds get to them before I can harvest any of them.
Mm.
And which I don't really mind because I know the birds got to eat and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So, and the interesting thing is we built this really old greenhouse that the way that we built it, it should have actually had the plastic, the actual like hard plastic sheetings over it, like the
Mhm.
similar to like the tin roofs, except they're plastic. We
Uh-huh.
should have put those on it, but we actually used weather plastic instead, and that was supposed to last like for winds for Alaska. It didn't last one winter in Tennessee, so it got completely destroyed. The frame was still good.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know if I really like where it's at and what I'm going to do with it. And so I had planted a wild blackberry bush that I got from the woods right in front of it. And by the next spring, it took over the entire greenhouse.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to leave that as is. That is now belongs to the blackberries. And the interesting thing is there's so many little critters, and we have a
Mhm.
groundhog and some foxes and a
Oh,
lot
I
of
love
birds
groundhogs and foxes.
and all these little creatures that live in there. And I'm like, I'm not going to cut this down because you guys have made
Yeah.
this your home. And I know those blackberries also feed you. So, and it keeps you out of my garden. You guys don't come eat my
Right.
stuff because you have your
Right.
own food supply. So I'm like, I'm just going to let you guys have that. I would love to harvest
Oh,
them, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not going to take your food away because that's
yeah.
yours.
Yeah, I love creating habitat for critters too. Um, I trimmed a whole bunch of our fruit trees and made a big brush pile that I was going to burn as soon
Hmm.
as the weather turned wet. But the same thing, a blackberry grew over it, and then I noticed that a skunk and two um, possums had moved
Oh,
in. And so yeah, either they're going to live there or they're going to move into my garage. So I figure they can have that area.
well,
And
hopefully the skunks don't move in your garage. That would not be very much fun.
yeah, well, I have a camera and I leave out a thing of dog food every night for
Hmm.
them because I love watching them. And right now I have two possums, two skunks, and two raccoons that come every night. um, and when it snows, I can see where their little footprints go.
Hmm.
And it looks like the raccoons are wintering up in the barn,
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
the skunks and the possum are in the wood pile.
I think that that's so much fun. We have a lot of raccoons here too. And this summer we noticed that we have a porcupine that lives in the woods now.
Oh, we have
And
porcupines here, but I've never seen one.
yeah, we saw it just walking through the woods, and I'm like, I've never seen that before.
Mm,
I'm like, I wonder where it came from because porcupines aren't really native to our area, so he
mm.
had to have moved in from somewhere. Um
Well, they eat pine needles, so you'll
that's
probably find them up in pines.
that's interesting because we don't have pines here.
I
We have
wonder
a
what
lot
he's
of
eating.
hickory and oak and um some walnut, and we have
Hmm.
some cedar, but we don't have pine. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I don't know. Maybe he's eating all the walnuts because there's a lot of black walnuts and hickory nuts
Mm,
that are back there. So, but yeah, that's really interesting. I like I said, I have no idea where he came from, and I'm sure he probably got moved out of the woods. There was a lot of woods that used to surround our farm,
mm.
but a lot of developers have bought up those woods and built
Oh,
subdivisions. So
oh,
all the
that's so
deer and the
depressing.
turkey and everything have moved onto our property,
Oh,
which I don't mind because they're cute and I like
yeah.
watching them. But we kind of have this like wild animal sanctuary that we're not really running, but kind of running because they
Mhm.
all moved in. And yeah, we have a lot of deer and we have a lot of coyotes this year. A
Oh, we do too.
lot.
We do
And
too. I love listening to them at night.
they were really close to my house a couple of weeks ago. I let
Mhm.
one of my dogs outside, and she's a Chihuahua dachshund.
Oh,
And so I heard them howling, and I grew up in New Mexico, and I was used to them being that loud, but not here. And I was
mm,
like, huh, they're really close to the house. I'm like, Hershey, you need to come in the house, honey. They're going to eat you. And
yeah,
she's, of course, barking at them like she's going to eat them. And I'm like, oh, no, no, honey. They will eat you. Come on.
Yes, they will.
Oh, but yeah, she thinks she can take on anybody, and
Mm,
including we had this big buck that walked through my backyard a couple weeks ago, and she was out there barking at him, and he kind of looks over at her like, "I'll just turn you into a shish kebab." No, I'm gonna ignore you and just keep on doing my thing. He was totally unfazed by her, and she thought she was so ferocious.
It is funny how Chihuahuas are so ferocious.
I think it's like they have a small dog complex or something like
Yes,
that.
I think they're lions.
Yeah, they do. They're so funny. Oh my goodness. But yeah, as far as our Yule stuff, we're so excited because we got cookies that we're planning on baking.
Mm,
My daughter loves my oatmeal chocolate chip cookies that I
oh,
make,
that sounds delicious.
and they are so delicious. And the interesting thing is, I know a lot of people don't like cinnamon with chocolate, but the cinnamon and the oatmeal and the chocolate just make the cookie. It's without the
Mm.
cinnamon, it's just not the same. So,
Cinnamon's one of my go-to spices
mhm.
because it's just so holiday and it makes the house just smell so lovely with its
Yes.
fragrance.
Yes, that, and there's something about cinnamon and vanilla, and when something's baking, that just
Mhm.
it makes the house just absolutely perfect. I love it.
Yes, it does.
So, do you and your family have any fun Yule traditions that you would like to share with everybody?
Well, we yesterday we went out and we cut out a whole bunch of limbs off the fir trees
Mhm.
and we're making wreaths with them right now. Um, I love crafting, but the sad thing is most of my crafts turn out looking like a second grader's project. But I still keep trying. I still keep doing it. So we do garlands and we do wreaths with those and put up lots of lights. We have a fire pit and we have little fires and roast marshmallows and have cocoa outside when it's not raining.
Mhm.
You know, it hasn't been that rainy this November or December, which is really strange for
I
up
think we
here.
got all your rain. We're supposed to get 10 days worth of rain.
Yeah, I think you did. We just had like a solid week of fantastic weather.
Yep. Well, we
Um,
must have traded weather before then.
um, we but yeah, we do have a few. One thing I love to do on the liminal days is make a pot of um either black eyed peas or a black eyed pea white bean soup, and I
Mhm.
make a big pot so anyone that comes by can have a bowl. And I love that good luck tradition of of just ushering luck into the new year. Um, that was something my dad always used to do, and I kind of adopted it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we do something kind of similar to that, except we kind of promote more healing going forward, especially as,
Mm.
the holidays, because the holidays are so draining on everybody.
Oh, yes, they are.
So I end up making a lot of like really comfort soups. So like
Mm,
chicken and gnocchi soup, and
mm,
roasted garlic and potato soup and stuff like that. Something that
yum.
really kind of sticks to your bones, especially when it's cold.
Mm,
And it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm putting turmeric in it, and I'm putting, lots of thyme and
yes.
um rosemary and all these things that are really good for the immune system. And so I'm
Mm.
like,
Lots of garlic.
yes, lots of good. We are one of those people that depending on how much garlic we put in, people ask if we're okay, kind of thing. Yeah, I we love our garlic, especially when it's roasted. I will roast 4 or 5 heads and put them in, a
Yeah,
recipe, which I know some
I
people
love
out there are
roasted
like, "Oh
garlic
my
too.
gosh, that's too much." No, it's not, but that's okay. If your ancestors
Yeah.
tell you that's too much, that's fine. Mine tell me
Mhm.
that's not enough.
I had leeks this year, and I still have leeks that I'm using. And yesterday, I made a chicken leek soup,
Oh, I
and
bet that's
oh,
delicious.
well, yeah, I threw in carrots and potatoes and stuff
Mhm.
too, but it was delicious. And you're right, it has a very gentle, nurturing energy that just is comforting and fueling.
Mhm.
I love soups this time, and chili. I do a lot of
Yes.
chilies too.
Yes. We do chili is lots of soups, and lots of kind of like stews with pasta,
Hmm.
that, really kind of stick to your bones kind of stuff.
Yeah.
My husband always is requesting my chicken paprikash and
Mm.
loves it because he's like, it's so good. And he's like, I don't even know why it's so good. And I'm like, because I cooked it in the cast iron pot with magic. That's why. I'm
Yeah.
like, if I cooked it in a different pot, I guarantee it would not taste the same. And he's like,
Mm.
no. And I'm like, I'm not going to risk it because it's delicious. But I guarantee if I cooked it in a different pot, it would not taste the same.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I have special cookware for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I know exactly what you mean.
Yep. And it's something to me about, maybe it's the whole cauldrons of old being cast iron and stuff like that, but all of my cast iron Dutch ovens and most of them are enameled because I don't actually like the
Right.
straight cast iron. But they're all cast iron, and I even have cast iron skillets and all these things,
Mhm.
and there's something about cooking in them that just really brings so much life into the
Yeah,
food, and I can't explain it. I just know that there's something magic about it, and
there is.
I don't know what
And
it is.
also well, I have my grandma's old cast iron pan.
Hmm.
She left it to me when she died. And I use it all the time. But the nice thing about it is you season it every time, you cook with it. You can, if you're making a frittata or something, I can start it on top of the stove and then I can stick the entire thing right in the
Yep.
oven.
Hmm.
And it is fantastic. But I also have the Dutch ovens that are cast iron that are enamel, and I
Hmm.
love that. I absolutely love that. I started doing my sourdough in that because it makes it gives it such a nice crunchy
Yep.
outside.
Yeah, it really does. I love making breads in them. I also have the glass bowls to make the peasant breads and those as well.
Oh, I
And
don't know about that.
yeah, so you mix all of your dough in
Mhm,
a glass like Pyrex bowl. Obviously, it has to be oven safe.
mhm,
So you do that and you mix all of your dough and everything, and it's usually just like yeast and some honey and some vinegar and some water and flour
mm.
and a couple of eggs. Mix it all together and let it rise for about an hour, and then you bake it for about an hour. And it bakes it everything is in one bowl, so you don't have to mix it in all sorts of different stuff unless you want to.
Do you let it rise
Mhm.
or?
Yeah, I let it rise for about an hour. I
Mm,
will usually preheat the oven and then just stick it on the back of the stove with a tea towel
mhm.
over it and let it rise that way. And it puffs up beautifully. And of course, mine is gluten free because I can't have wheat.
No, me
Um,
too. Me too.
and so, yeah, I do that and then I bake it. And the interesting thing is, I have some stoneware ramekins, and I actually did the same dough and put it in those ramekins and put them on a sheet pan and let them rise for about 45 minutes and then bake them. And the interesting thing is, they didn't turn out similar to the bread where they had like a crusty outside that was kind of hard. They
Mhm.
almost turned out like biscuits.
Interesting.
And the interesting thing is, it's really hard to make good gluten-free biscuits unless you
Yeah.
buy like a pre-mix kind of thing. But they turned out so good. We actually made sausage gravy to go with it and
Oh,
had biscuits
nice.
and gravy, which that's not what they were intended for. They were intended to be like small little loaves to go with my lentil soup. And my husband's like, I know you made soup, but can we have the soup tomorrow and make biscuits and gravy to go with these? Because that's the stuff, the texture they have. And I
Aw.
was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And they were so good, so, so
Mm.
good. But yeah, I absolutely love baking that. And there's something about homemade bread this time of year. And I've also experimented with that same bread recipe and mixed like a butter and cinnamon sugar kind of thing and just kind of folded it
Mhm.
through the dough, and it makes almost like a cinnamon bread, and it's so good. So, so
Mm.
good.
I've been using the cup for cup, oh, it's in the blue package. I forget the name, but I've been really pleased with the results.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's just called Cup for Cup,
I
and
think
it's
there is
a
one that's called Cup for Cup. I don't remember. Oh, they just changed the packaging in the one that we use, but it's also a Cup for Cup one.
mm,
And I know we buy it at Walmart, and you can get it on
yeah,
Amazon too.
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it used to be a like burgundy colored package,
Mm,
and then they changed it to a white and blue package. It's all the
yes.
same flower, but yeah, I don't remember exactly the name of it because I just buy 4 or 5 bags, stick them in the freezer, and then when I need them, I pull them out and put them in my canister.
I have been really happy with the way with the things that the breads,
Mm-hmm.
the quick breads especially, pancakes and biscuits. Uh,
Yes.
it's yeah, I've been really happy with the results of that.
We've been really having a good time with that too. We actually just made banana pancakes,
Mm,
and we bought one of the new Ninja like food blender system
mhm.
things,
I have that.
and I love that thing. Like I loved my old food processor and my old blender because they served me well for many years,
Mhm.
but I don't know how I've lived without my Ninja because it does everything in half the time and it does it so
Yeah.
much better. And I'm like, okay. Also, this is not a shameless plug for Ninja, just for the record. We're just talking about how great it is. But yeah.
It is. It cleans up easy. I do
Hmm.
I can make a lot of I only have a Ninja and a magic bullet. And
Yeah.
I grind like all my own flours
Hmm.
in those for oats and corn, not corn, oats and almond.
Hmm.
Um if I need a walnut or anything, it's just easy and convenient and works perfect.
It does work absolutely perfect. It's such a great system. We bought the one that had like the smoothie cup, the food processor, and the blender in it, and it has been
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
absolutely the best
That's
system.
the one I have as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and buckwheat. You can do buckwheat super easy in it.
Oh, that's so interesting. Buckwheat's one of the ones that my my body, because I'm actually allergic to wheat,
Mhm.
and the properties within wheat. Buckwheat's one of those ones that, depending on how it's processed, my body can
Mm,
handle it or it can't. So it's very interesting with buckwheat. And most of the time, I just stay away from buckwheat because I don't want to risk the
mm,
allergies that come with it.
right.
But yeah, most of the time we use rice flours, or
Mhm.
any sort of rice or almond flour kind of mixture.
Me
And
too. I
yeah.
use that. I can do buckwheat just fine, but I cannot do rye or and I can't do quinoa, which
Hmm.
is annoying.
Quinoa is very
Um,
interesting. It's one of those ones. I'm not a big quinoa fan normally,
mm,
because of the texture of it.
mm.
And but even the flour has kind of an interesting texture to it. But I've also started using chickpea flour,
Oh,
and
me too.
I
Me
like
too.
chickpea flour. I like
I do
that a
too.
lot.
I do as well. I like chickpea and I like corn flour.
Yes, corn flour is definitely good, especially for pasta. I find that it
Mm.
holds up a lot better than just straight rice flour pasta.
A lot of times for even like a pie crust, I'll just throw a half a cup in,
Oh,
and it gives
interesting.
it a nice, denser, sturdier crust for like ham pies and
Hmm.
things. Um,
Have you tried growing your own corn to make your own corn flour before?
I do grow my own corn, but I've never made corn flour. I have like 6 ears drying right now. I'm trying to dry them to make my own seeds.
Hmm.
But we have such problems with mold here
Right.
that
Yeah.
I we just I've been using the corn fresh and making fried corn. Saute it with butter and on the stovetop,
Hmm.
um, and roasting it. Of course, boiling it,
Yeah.
boiled corn. But I mean, it's still good, still great with butter. But no, I've never tried drying it and grinding it.
There's a couple that I follow on TikTok, and they grow all of their food and they hunt all their food and fish all their food. Like they're completely
Mm-hmm.
subsistent, which I absolutely love. And they grow all of their corn, and that is their grain.
Mm-hmm.
And they grind it all up and they make like tortillas and chips and breads and stuff with it. And I'm like, I want to try that so
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
But I'm like,
Well,
I don't have the patience for a lot of, and I know they have to grow a lot of it. So
yeah.
yeah.
I am I think you've inspired me to try that. I am doing a field of oats this spring.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I don't know if it will end up being animal fodder or if I'll be able to use it. I'm hoping that's what I'm hoping for. But I don't know. It depends on how easy it is to harvest and all that stuff, you know.
Yes, I completely understand that one.
Total experiment. But you know, it's fun. And I found a great bag of seeds that were not expensive.
Oh,
So
that's good. That's really
yeah.
good. I think that that's going to be really interesting. Enjoy hearing people's adventures when they do that kind of stuff. So I think that that's really cool. I don't have the patience to do that. Plus, we get natural oats that grow here anyway,
Mm.
and I could probably harvest them if I really wanted to, but I don't want to deal with the snakes out there to get them. So I I will just let them grow and have the deer eat them. That's fine.
I I'm so lucky where we are. I have lots of garden snakes, but only garden snakes. We don't have any poisonous type.
Oh, that's lucky. Yeah,
Yeah,
we have copperheads,
yeah.
unfortunately. So I
Do you have
don't mess with them.
rattlesnakes?
I know we have some rattlesnakes, but
Mm.
I've never seen one.
Oh,
People have told me yes, they are in the area. But I have seen copperheads,
hmm.
and that's enough. I don't need to see any
We
others.
we just have little red racers and green racers and little garden snakes. They're small and cute
And
and
we have
sweet.
chicken snakes too.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and which they're not poisonous. If they bite you, it'll hurt. But
Mhm.
they're more afraid of you than anything. I don't know if we had spoken about that last time, but over the summer we had one that shed its skin just outside of our house, and there
Mhm.
was a small tear in our storm door in the screen, and it came in through the screen into my house looking for food and was slithering up my wall.
Oh,
And the snake was probably about 7 feet long. It was huge.
wow. Wow.
And so I'm like, my daughter, I had just finished doing a uh kind of group online channeling session. And so I was kind of in that like still hazy psychic state and all that stuff. And I was gathering me some food to eat because I knew I needed to ground and all that stuff. And she was like, "Hey, what's wrong with Angela's picture?" And that's my sister in law.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And so I come around the corner thinking, "Oh God, I've invited some crazy spirit into my house and it's attacking my pictures." That's where my brain went. And
Mhm.
I look at it and I'm like, "What is on her picture?" And then I saw it move and I'm like, "Oh
Oh.
my God, that's a snake." And so I go in, I call my father-in-law and I'm like, "Hey, there's a snake in the house. Could you help with it, please?" And because it had just shed its skin, we knew that it was going to be really hard if we needed to actually kill it.
Mm.
And so eventually we were like, "Okay, let's see if we can just scoop it up and get it out the door." No, it decided it was going to wrap itself up inside my couch
Oh, wow.
and just refused. So we got it out from underneath the couch, and eventually it just kept trying to go in other rooms in the house. And I was like, "No, I'm sorry. As much as we're trying to get this thing to go outside, we're going to have to kill it because the dogs are trying to get to it." And I'm like, "No, we're not going to have that fiasco." And so we ended up killing it, unfortunately. But yeah, it just refused to go back outside, even though we tried for like half an hour to get it outside. And it was just a huge fiasco. But it was really kind of scary to have a snake just climbing up your
Oh,
wall.
we did that when I think it was I think it was in June, the 1st of June. Every night for a week, we'd have bats come in at night.
Oh,
And
wow.
I finally figured out we had put a new vent into one of the bathrooms that we're remodeling,
Hmm.
and it had a hole about the size of a tennis ball. And for some reason, they were
Oh.
just coming in to check out the area. But yeah, the first night it was a little bit spooky, but then we got used to it and figured out how to catch them and throw them back outside. And
I think I would rather take bats or birds in my house than snakes.
yeah, yeah,
I'm just really thankful it wasn't a copperhead and it was just a chicken
right.
snake. But yeah, it was poor guy was just looking for food, and then I found his skin like 2 days later just outside my fence, and I'm like,
Mm.
"Aw." I'm like, "Sorry, dude." I apologized to him. I'm like, "I'm sorry. I tried, but you wouldn't leave."
Oh,
So The cool thing is that there's so many fun adventures that happen on the homestead. For everybody that homesteads, it's always a fun adventure, no matter how it turns out. Sometimes it's a
That
little
is
nerve
so
wracking,
true.
but other times it's really exciting.
Mm,
And I really like this time of year because it's slower than the rest of the season because you got growing season, animals, and all
mm,
that other stuff.
yeah.
But December and a little bit into January is always a really nice time that we get to slow down. And my daughter and I have decided that we didn't get to do it this year, but next year we want to do a book advent and have our own advent calendar of books and do that because she's an avid reader, I'm an avid reader, and so we thought that that would be a really fun new
I love
tradition
that
to
idea.
start.
I love that idea.
I think that it's going to be really, really fun. We bought her, gosh, I think like 17 books for Yule this year.
Wow.
She knows about
Wow.
all of them, unfortunately, because the box got destroyed in
Oh.
a thunderstorm. It got left at my neighbor's house and they don't have a porch.
Mm.
And so I walked up to their house and it was sitting on the front porch and
Oh.
the box was just soaked to the bone, completely destroyed, falling apart. And I'm like, I hope I can get this thing home for starters. And all but 5 of the books were completely destroyed.
Oh, that's terrible.
And luckily the company was nice and they were going to replace everything. So,
Mm.
but yeah, so I had all these books stacked in front of our heater trying to dry them all out. And, in case the company didn't replace them.
Right.
And so she knew all of the books that she was getting for Yule. And she's like, I don't care. She's like, if they dry, she's like, can I read them? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, if you want to. There's new ones coming. And she goes, that's cool. I'll just reread them. I'm like, all right, kiddo, whatever you want to do. But yeah, we want to do a book advent next year. I think that that's going to be a really fun and exciting thing for her.
That is nice. I'm in Central Washington, and um, summer and winter are so different. Summer, the sun comes up at like 5 in the morning, and it goes to bed at like 9:20 or nine
Oh,
forty in
wow. That's a
June.
long day.
Yeah, it's a long day. And now the sun comes up, I think it's like 7:40,
Mm-hmm.
and it's dark by 5.
Yeah.
It's pitch black. Pitch black. It's like the sun starts setting like 4:30. Um, so it really is a different time, and it's cold and wet. So it's instead of being outside, you're inside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and trying to create a nice, warm, comfy, cozy interior. When in summer, you have the windows thrown open and
Mm-hmm.
you're outside working from daylight to sunset, and yes, it is a huge difference in
It is.
lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and it's so interesting going from season to season because, spring you have that mad dash to get everything ready for the garden.
Yeah, yeah.
And then summer
And
is,
crossing your fingers that the soil is going to dry out so you can plant.
yes, exactly.
I did do a whole bunch of raised beds because last year it took so long.
Mm-hmm.
So this year I have raised beds, and so I can get my tomatoes and peppers out, even if it's wet. I don't care. They're going out.
I think that sometimes tomatoes and peppers actually prefer it to be like kind of wet.
Mhm.
So that my peppers kind of were like, I'll do whatever. I'll just grow. It's fine. And that's kind of what my peppers did this last year. My jalapenos love the hot and dry summer.
Oh, mine too. I
They
have to grow mine in a greenhouse.
I don't have to grow mine in a greenhouse. Mine do really well, especially if they're sitting in the middle of my patio.
Oh,
Because I put
nice.
them in grow bags, and so I'll just put
Mhm.
them in the middle of my patio where it gets the most sun, and they are just happy as clams. They were still producing in November,
Wow.
and then we got a really hard freeze in November, and that was the end of them. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, they produced all the way through November. It was like November 15th, and I harvested the last of my jalapenos,
I had
and
a
it was
great season.
crazy.
Yeah, I had a great huge season with problamos this year.
My
Just
poblanos were small, but they did well. Yeah, we
mm,
got a lot of them, but they were little. I couldn't get the long ones. Oh, and then next year I'm really excited because I'm from New Mexico, so we're
mm,
used to hatch green chilies.
uh-huh.
Um,
I was born in Albuquerque.
oh really?
Yeah.
I was born in Albuquerque and I was raised in Taos. So
Mm,
yeah. But yeah, they grocery store here got hatch green chilies, fresh ones,
Mm.
in the grocery store. And I was walking through the grocery store and I saw hatch on this bag and I was like, no, those aren't hatch green chilies. And so I'm like, actually, they are. So I bought
Mm.
like 9 bags of them, took
Wow.
them home, processed them, and put them in my freezer. But I saved all the seeds from them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Yeah. I
try
do
to
that
grow
too.
them.
Yeah.
And
I did that too. And I've had really, really good luck.
yeah, we had some really good luck. We did that one year with peppers. And
Mhm.
um, the only downside was I bought, they had also a special on little sweet peppers.
Mhm.
And these little sweet peppers, they were little like red peppers and they were gloriously beautiful. And so I bought a whole bunch of those and I was like, you know what? I'm going to dehydrate these and make my own paprika.
Mhm.
And so I did. And I ended up with a whole jar of paprika. It took me like 3 days to dry all the bags of peppers out, but they were all seedless.
Wow.
And
Huh.
so
Yeah.
I'm like,
I run into
oh
that with the small
man.
ones too.
Yeah, I was so bummed out because they were all seedless and I just wanted seeds out of one of them so I could at least try to grow them. But yeah, and my homemade paprika, it's another one of those things that when you make it from scratch, you
Mhm.
can't go back to store bought.
Oh, I'm gonna have to try that. I have never tried to do paprika.
Yeah, if it's the little sweet peppers, they look like jalapenos, but they're actually
Mm.
the sweet peppers. And so to make about a 8-ounce jar of paprika took me 5 1-pound bags of them.
Wow.
And I just put them in my dehydrator, skins and all. And
Mhm.
then I would, once they were completely dry, and obviously take them and they snap. And
Mhm.
I put them in my spice grinder, and I ground them up. And I also added some rice in there and ground that up for a anti-caking agent, which did
Right.
not work because it's too
Oh, it
humid here.
didn't.
Yeah. So but it still worked out okay and I wasn't super mad. I just, scrape it out with a fork to break it up. So I'm not super mad that it's, all clumped together. But it is the best tasting paprika. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
It is so good. And it smells so vibrant. Like when you cut into a really beautiful red bell pepper, that's what it
Mhm.
smells like.
Mm.
And it's so good. It is like one of the best things I've ever like dehydrated and made. um but yeah, we have so much cool stuff that we're looking forward to for next year. We're actually getting ready to kind of start going through our seeds and starting our garden plan.
Mhm.
Because as soon as January rolls around, the game begins again because then I got to start prepping, all my seedlings and everything else and getting all my winter stuff out or my early spring stuff like my peas, which I have golden peas this year. I'm going to try growing those.
Oh, nice. I
Uh,
did Alaska peas and they did really well.
oh, nice. Okay. So I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be really great. And as much as I kind of dread the start of growing season, I always get super excited about halfway through and then I dread the end because I'm like, A, it's over, and B, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I have to can everything.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, what am I gonna do with all this stuff?
And then you're eating it through the winter and then when you run out of like your homemade tomatoes or your homegrown tomatoes or homemade stuff and then you're just like, oh, now it's
Yeah.
gone. Now I have to buy
Or sometimes it's like, "Yay!" We've had too much. Um,
it.
I have so many bags of shredded zucchini in my freezer right now, but, I know exactly what you mean. I have a hole that has pumpkins and butternut squash just lining it
Hmm.
for later use. But I'm still growing Swiss chard and kale and cabbage and leeks and scallions and parsnips and beets and carrots that I just pick when I want.
Hmm.
But I've made so many things with like Swiss chard and kale. I'm kind of over it.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I like to do with kale that I don't think I'll ever grow bored of because it's one of my like happy foods
Mm.
is I make potato and kale tacos.
Oh, that sounds
And
delicious.
I have them for breakfast with some hot sauce
Mm.
and some cheese. They're
Mhm.
like the best things in the world. You just saute up your potatoes like hash browns
Mhm.
and then saute up some kale with whatever seasonings you like on your kale, whatever it may be. Mine is onion powder, garlic powder, some seasoned salt, and some paprika and black pepper.
Mm.
And then you saute it up till it's nice and soft and tender. Throw it in a flour or corn tortilla, whichever you prefer, and put on some hot sauce and eat them. They're so
Wow,
good.
does sound delicious.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of galettes with like goat cheese and then sauteed onion and kale or Swiss chard.
Now you
And
have goats, right?
I do have
Do
goats, but
you?
my goats are boys.
Oh, I was about to say, did you make your own goat cheese?
You know, I want to, but I haven't embraced the whole milking thing yet.
That's
Uh,
fair.
you know, I don't know if I that's such a commitment.
It is
Um,
a commitment. Yes, it
so right
is.
now I just have some boys that are fixed and they just hang out with the sheep. They were actually the first animals I got were these two brothers and
Oh.
they were just like I think they were 2 months old when we got them and they were still indoors with pajamas on. Um, yeah,
Goats in
yeah,
pajamas.
yeah. Um, and you know, they're so sweet, but we just got them to help us. We have a lot of pastures, and I needed help maintaining the pastures, and they hardly did anything. So we got sheep, and the sheep really do a great job
Hmm.
of, you know, eating down all the
I
grass and
know with
blackberry and
if you
everything.
want goats to be like your goat lawnmowers, I know you need like 30 to 50 per acre, I think is what
Yeah, and
somebody
I
said.
just can't do that.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
a lot of mouths to feed.
it is, and you know, you gotta trim their hooves, and they need care. They also are very social.
Hmm.
Um, they like spending time with you every day.
Oh,
Um,
that's cute.
and the goats are so much easier than sheep. The goats will sit down and just let you pet them and do their hoofs, just and they'll just kind of go limp and just let you do whatever you want. The sheep, you have to wrangle, you have to tie them up, you have to put a knee in their side, you have to force them down and clip their hoofs, and the whole thing is just this exhausting, traumatic event. But, you know, you have to do it like every 2 months. So
Do you shear your sheep as well?
I don't do that. I have to hire somebody to do it because it's
Oh,
just
okay.
too hard. Um, it's just too hard. I'd rather have somebody who would, you know, I don't want to nick them and just,
That's
you know,
fair. That's
I don't want to
totally
make it more
fair.
traumatic than it has to be. So just in the spring, I have a shearer come over and he does them for me.
Do you guys keep your wool or do you give it
I
to the
haven't
shearer?
yet, but my daughter-in-law asked for it because she's taking up knitting and she wants to experiment with it. So I'm going to give it to her next spring.
Oh, neat. You'll have to let
Yeah,
me know how that goes. That's cool. I like
yeah.
that. That's very cool. Well, we are just about out of time. Do you have any new classes or events happening? Obviously you just had your garden witchcraft book come out this year. Do you have
Mm,
any other new
I
books that are
I
on the
do.
horizon?
I have Wellness Witchery is coming out next year. It doesn't have a date. I just turned in the revision. It does have a cover and it does have a title. Um, but it's for next year. And then the following year, I did all the recipes for the Llewellyn Witch's Date book, and that was
Oh,
so
nice.
much fun. That was so much fun. I turned in, I got all these recipes. Worked out the kinks. I turned them in, and then they turned them back to me and said, you know, we got to fit them in this little teeny corner. So you need to, you know, cut everything up and compress it as much as you can. That was quite challenging,
Mm-hmm.
but it, that was fun. I had a good time with that.
Oh, that's super cool. I will definitely. I always buy the date book every year because, I
I do
love it.
too. It
Um,
I was so thrilled that they asked me to do it, and, I made them all seasonal, so
oh, that's gonna be
that was a
even
lot of fun too.
better.
Yeah.
I love that. That is so awesome. And I cannot wait for your wellness witchery book because I love both of your other witchery books.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I'm so excited for the others. Everybody out there who's listening to this wonderful homesteading Yule update, make sure you go buy Laurel's books. That is Kitchen Witchery and Backyard Garden Witchery. Those are both by Laurel Woodward. Laurel, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been
Oh, thank you so
absolutely
much for having
delightful. And of course, as always, you are welcome to come back anytime and we can talk about your goats the whole time because goats are cute.
me.
All right, everybody, you guys stay safe, and I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.